Hey there everybody, it's Wayne D. Welcome to the website. On the right you're seeing a familiar face. If you watched the tournament this week, Matthew Wolff from Oklahoma State did very nicely, made the cut, finished right around 40th, finished, I think he was 3 under, 4 under the first round, and played very nicely. Hit the ball, he hits it far, and he hits it good. He's won 3 college tournaments already in the fall this year. On the left, have someone you probably never heard of before. His name is Jimmy Bruen, and he was probably the first great Irish player. So Bruen played in the Walker Cup in 1938. He actually won the British Boys Championship at 16 in 1936. So he was only 18 years old, and he played in the Walker Cup, and it happened to be the first ever Great Britain and Ireland win in the Walker Cup after 9 straight losses to start with. So the reason I'm putting these up next to each other is that Wolff's swing has garnered a lot of attention because it's quirky, as you'll see. So certainly not a normal top of the swing position. If you're looking at positions P1 through P8, these don't follow the rules. Of course, when it gets down into here, it looks pretty awesome. So we'll talk about that in a little more detail. But Bruen, back in 19, this video is from the probably the mid to late 40s, after the war. Bruen won the British Amateur in 1946. He was known for his incredible length off the tee, and Wolff is also becoming known for his prodigious length. So now that we can measure ball speed and club head speed, Wolff's way up there in that regard. So what are we looking at here? Let's look at let's watch Bruen swing a couple times here. So we're going to see some real interesting similarities, and the first of which is the fact that in the backswing, if you watch, especially if you get a little clearer picture of Wolff over here, there will be none of the usual right forearm rotation. So when the palm turns from down to up, that's supination. So he would be, in this case, if he was taking a normal backswing, the club would really probably come up the plane here, and then by the time the hands got to about here, where the grip would be like this, the shaft would point somewhere in the neighborhood of on plane, which is there. You'll see golfers with the shaft more vertical. Every now and then you'll see players with the shaft flatter, but you don't usually see that. So what's happening here is the right forearm is just not rotating at all. So the left elbow is staying pointed down. The upper right arm is going to stay pointed this way. Now I'm talking about the flat part under the forearm is pointed down. So with no rotation in the hands, wrists, forearms, and the left shoulder coming under, see the shoulder turn has got a normal tilt to it. The right arm just keeps raising, and the club has nothing to turn it onto the plane, so it's just going to stay away over there. So Wolff's grip is a little weaker than Bruen's. So see, Bruen's got a little more of a cup in the wrist, and Matthews is going to stay a little flatter. I'd say Bruen's right arm is even higher than Matthews. And now here's the key move. So anybody who doesn't think that the upper right arm, even in a normal swing, is going to do three things. It's going to adduct, which means the upper part of the right arm is going to move in a downward and forward direction. The right forearm that hasn't supinated at all is now going to supinate in a major fashion, which is in turn going to encourage the shoulder to externally rotate. So that right elbow and right arm are going to drive from where they are way up there. You can see where the elbow is here, and you can see the direction that it's moving in. And then by the time he comes down into the hitting area, he's got clearance in front of his right hip. Now, in a full motion, if we watch, you can start to see where some of that power is generated. I would call what he's doing, and it's kind of a term that I use, would be a hard catch, meaning that the swing as it's traveling up is caught by the body. So watch the left heel, and that's another thing. We'll see a couple more. I'll show you a couple other angles of Bruen. His heel is every bit as high, if not higher, than Matthews. So we're getting a large amount of hip turn with a fairly steep shoulder turn. So we get a lot of nice body coil there. Now watch the movement. We'll see that the heel is going to begin to descend right there, and it's exactly at the time that the club head begins to move sideways. So you can see that force he's putting on the hand path right there is rotational in nature, but he's putting a lot of stress on that grip. So you can imagine if that shaft was more flexible, you would watch it bend as the club head weight tries to stay over here and his body moves that handle. You can watch where the end of the grip is here. So there's that movement down really exactly toward the ball. Now Bruen's going to get his club a little more up over his head, but watch the same idea. So with the right arm a little higher, the club's going to stay a little more in front of him, but watch him lean this thing back into a beautiful hitting position. So here's a shot of Bruen from the face-on view. Watch a couple of his swings. So watch how that, without that rotation, there's nothing to keep that elbow from flying up in the air, and there's nothing taking the club behind him. It's going to stay all the way back in front of him. So let's look at a face-on of Wolff here. So obviously, you can see that neither one of them has a real strong grip. I'd say Wolff's is weaker. So again, take a look at the height of the right arm when the left arm is parallel to the ground, way above, staying there. Now look at the left leg. And then here's the kick. So again, the right arm is going to adduct. The forearm is going to supinate, and the right shoulder is going to externally rotate. And that right elbow is going to come in front of the hip. So if we watch the hip movement from the top, we're going to see Bruen is going to move a little more forward off the right side. Now let's watch Wolff swing. So we're going to get a more of a forward placement of the hips at address, and then we're going to slide them back here. So I've heard some people talking about how there's very little lateral movement in Wolff's swing, but it's actually, if you watch from address, since his hips are placed forward of center, this video is not exactly face on, but we can see the rearward movement here, the backslide of the hips. So he could actually set up with his hips right here, which means that in the forward swing, that is lateral movement. So he is not just squatting down on his right leg, he is moving. But you can see the load that he puts on that grip is going to delay that club a long time, and he's going to have plenty of power. And you can also see the depth when his pivot drops his head down. Look where he is there, where he was. So he's got himself loaded up on that left leg, and he can really push up, straighten that thing. And that's what you would call a front foot flyer. That front foot is going to wheel back. So you're not going to see that in Bruen's swing, a little less violent. But Bruen was known for hitting the ball tremendous distances. So anyway, I thought that would be interesting to see that if you go back 80 years, you see a guy using the same technique as one of your up-and-coming stars.